Tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have quite a little panel tonight of people to talk to today. We don't usually do shows this late at night, like it's midnight, but damn John Simmons, we made this time so he could join us, and I don't think he's going to join us. Well, some bitch. But anyway, I'm just going to, first of all, we all know what this is about tonight. It's caused quite a stir a little bit for kind of dumb reasons, but let me just go around the group here, and if anybody doesn't already know who you are, tell us yourself and tell us what you do. Let's start with Ethan.
Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm the CEO of Merlin Models. We've been around for the last 3 years doing studio scale model kits, and before that, I spent the last 15 years doing architecture and really high-end custom 3D work. And I've been making models and custom building, jack of all trades, scratch-built stuff for probably 30 years or so.
Okay. Jonathan.
Hey, I'm Jonathan. Work in the film industry. Used to do visual effects, do miniatures. Now I do mostly specialty costume stuff. And I also, a little free time, scratch build, studio scale, mostly Star Wars, but hopefully soon get into some Battlestar stuff. But, yeah.
Okay. Justin.
Hey guys, I'm Justin Monaco. I'm the CEO of Merlin Models. Like Ethan said, we've been doing this for model making for Star Wars stuff for about the past 3 years, and before that, I was doing architectural rendering for the past 20 years. So.
Nice. Lee.
Hey, I'm Lee. I work in visual effects. It's all pretty much CGI now, as we know, but I got into it because of models and miniatures back when I was a kid. I grew up in that era of Space 1999 and Star Wars and everything else, and wanted to do that. But by the time I got into it, it was all CGI. So, but I got back into model making, especially studio scale, as I got more into CGI, because I wanted to have that kind of tactile experience, as it were, of actually physically building stuff again, which I did as a kid, but got out of it.
Can you tell some of the shows you worked on, some of the movies you worked on?
Well, the Star Trek, a couple of different Star Trek shows, Battlestar Galactica, Firefly, some of the older stuff, some of the newer Trek, Star Wars, the Clone Wars. I flip-flop between live action, visual effects, and animated stuff. So Starship Troopers animated stuff. I've done Lego animated stuff. I've done talking dogs and talking cats and everything in between. Last few shows I've done, I live in Asia now, so the last few shows I've done have been more Netflix Asia related shows, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, stuff like mostly like supernatural and ghosts. But my origin of all this and my specialty is spaceships. So
cool.
That's why.
Awesome. And you're Lee Stringer, right?
Yes.
Let's add your last name. So we
Stringer. Sorry. Yes.
Yes, you're Stringer. Jason and I, I'm going to answer for myself. Jason, if you want to, I just eat, sleep, and breathe modeling right now. I'm a hobbyist. I basically started a year or two ago, and it's all I want to do. Like, my wife gets mad at me because I do spend so much time in my garage working on this shit and in bed looking at reference and kit parts, and it's
so you're that meme where the wife is asleep going, oh, he's thinking about other women, and you're like, now what part is that Tamiya kit thing?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Usually she's smacking me because she can't fall asleep when I'm on my phone, so I get in trouble for that a lot. But Jason, do you want to tell us anything?
Yeah, so in regards to the modeling aspect, been collecting for roughly 20 years. Started collecting models about 5 years in, around the Master Replicas, EFX time, and then started graduating to some of the custom and garage kits, but was purchasing them pre-built and painted. And then eventually, as time went on, as a hobbyist and an enthusiast, I just started getting curious and intrigued by it, and decided I tried my hand at it. And being a creative, same as you, Chris, I just got bit by that bug, and ever since, I think the last couple of years, it's just been live, eat, sleep, and breathe. Chasing down kits and getting what you can, research and development, and just building away every day.
Cool. So, all right. So the premise of this show really is, what is studio scale? Okay. As far as I know, this isn't a term that was coined by ILM. It was pretty much made up by RPFers, right? Back in the old days, was it? You know the answer to that, Lee.
I don't know the actual answer to that, but because I was thinking, like, when did this sort of begin? Because I started doing my first studio scale build around 2000. But that I wasn't one of the first. It was because I'd seen other people do it, and I was trying to think of who started this. And Jim Grevling, who built the first or completed, I should say, the first 6-foot Galactica back around 1999. I'd kind of consider him one of the origins, and I think he might have coined the term.
Okay.
But it's definitely at least 20 to 25 years old. It might have been not EFX, Master Replicas, not even Master Icons. It might have been Icons.
Yeah.
It might have been, when they did their X-Wing and TIE Fighter, which were kind of like the first actual production, produced studio scale replicas. They might have coined the term.
And
interesting.
Our whole point to this tonight is not to bash anything or to mislead anybody. It's mostly just to discuss what the term studio scale applies. And I think there's a lot of new people. There's a lot of people that are very passionate about it right now, because it was a big open wound in the Star Wars collecting community that was not being filled because of EFX, Master Replicas not being around anymore, or EFX just not doing it. So a lot of people were extremely interested in having ships in their collection. I mean, it's a huge part of Star Wars. It is also, a lot of the ships, like the Millennium Falcon, also have are personalities in the show, So and Slave One too. They're huge in Star Wars. And there's a lot of new people who don't understand it. And there's a lot of older people who don't understand it either. And I think, I don't even know if I quite understand it. I have my own opinions on it, but I also feel like this group here could probably help educate other people to understand what the term means. But what this is not it. What this isn't is telling you that something you like is wrong. It's just, that's not what this is about. You can like whatever the hell you want. I mean, you could like a pile of dog shit on the ground. That doesn't matter to me. We're just here to educate a little bit, talk about, discuss. It's because it's been a little bit heated on Facebook, today because of this. And contrary to a lot of belief, this isn't because of what was released today. This is Jason and I have been talking about this for a while. We want to do this show for a little bit now, right, Jason?
We're going back at least 2 months.
Yeah, easily. I
don't want to jump in, but a lot of this changed and opened up when both D'Agostini did their Millennium Falcon and Mobius did their Cylon Raider model kit a few years back. Both of those are were commercially available, essentially model kits, and especially the Mobius kit, because it was like $50 or something, and it wasn't a $2,000 thing. It was something you could just go buy, and they didn't just choose to do a larger Cylon Raider model kit. They did one that was actually technically a studio scale model kit, which was the first, and that opened this whole thing up to a lot of people that didn't even know about it beforehand.
Right. So I forgot what I was gonna say. I had a thought in my head, but I lost it.
I'm sorry.
Jason, tell us what, like. I feel like studio scale it's a lot of different things. Okay, I think right now it's become this stamp of lineage or validation. Okay, whether it's really studio scale or not, like it's just become, if it says studio scale on it, like if somebody ever, like even just a normal hobbyist, it could say, all right, this is studio scale. Is it really? Is it like, is it an actual size scaled model off of kit parts and reference and stuff, or is it just, a lot of people throw that term around a lot without actually knowing what it is.
I think it starts with, what are you trying to present to your audience with the words that you're trying to use? Are you talking about a level of quality or a level of detail or a level of accuracy? Or are you just talking about a size? Because inside our specific kind of industry, like you have Sideshow and you've got Queen Studios, you've got established licensed collectibles companies who have factory paint jobs and all that stuff, and they've got their thing. We live in our own little Wild West, right? Our own little tiny bubble, and those rules, there's no established rules, there's no gold sticker, there's no name that you can put on the box that a customer is going to be able to read that proves to the customer that they're getting something, that proves to them that there's a trust, that they're getting something that they can actually believe in, or anything like that. So it really starts with like when you say studio scale, like when we first started our company, like when we first released the first cast kit, the AT-AT, we did that whole thing off of pictures and a few model kit parts, and we would say, I think 90% accurate. We were missing 10 pieces or less that were, I think Lee Ruff would say that was not good, and he said it was a great model, but not studio scale. And we had a big discussion about it. Mm-hmm. And at that time, we would have considered that studio scale because it was the right size and the parts were the right size. And because it was 90% accurate, I would still friendly argue that that's close enough to call it studio scale. But going off of, if you're trying to put a stamp on it in the Wild West, and you're trying to say, this is a thing that you can actually like if there was one term to say, I believe that this is the real thing, then you can't officially call that studio scale, because it's not that 98% that you're looking for, where it's like every known part, where it's everything that everybody, the conglomerate, agrees, from all the friendly people, that you found everything that can be found. But that's where it kind of goes into that kind of that gray world is, do you believe that studio scale is based upon an accuracy level of finding all the known kit parts? Some of those parts are scratch built, so you're never going to get that full level of accuracy. What level of accuracy gives you the ability to say that it's studio scale? Is it 90%? Is it 95%? Is it 80%? Where does that lie? We can't put a label on our box, unless we had a guild, and we can't really make a guild because that just makes us even more, I guess, popular, because we're not licensed. We can't do those types of things. We have to stay in our own little world. So that's where it gets a little weird. But at that same point, we're having this conversation, we're having this video, because we want to educate people to say, if that's what you're looking for, then you should watch this video, because that's what you need to understand when you're looking at all the options, because you need to understand what a price point is for that, what a price point is for something that's not, what a price point is for something that's even less. What do you get for Bandai? What do you get from this? What do you get from this? There are levels, and each level gets you a certain thing, and you just need to know what they are, because each one gives you a level of enjoyment, and every single one is fine for each one of those levels of enjoyment. But if you're looking for something, you should just know what you're looking for, and that's, I think, what it boils down to. Mm-hmm. So I think that's our main piece, and why we're on here, is just to be able to answer any questions on that side of things, just from our own experience, because we've evolved tremendously, and now we're putting in I don't know, tens of thousands of hours and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and basically everything to make all of these model kits insanely accurate.
So you and Justin
it's a totally different thing.
You and Justin are coming from the commercial side of it, right? Because
and we're coming from the commercial side, and we're
right.
Like what we're doing is not something that can be comparable to what anybody else is doing in the industry. I don't want to compare our stuff with any other company out there just because we're doing something like even the production side of it is just different. It's a totally different beast.
It's our own thing.
So I don't. Yeah, and that's why I don't want to like we're not coming on here. Again, like we're not trying to bash anybody and say like we're just in a different sphere, and I'm, that's kind of, I don't want to, like, people are going to say, well, you're just trying to say that you're better and you're blah 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 blah. We're not. We're just trying to be honest.
We have our own
like,
production pipeline.
We're just doing something different,
I guess you would call it unique.
Yeah.
So it's good though that you guys have a commercial side to this. Jason and I and Steve have a hobby side to this. Lee and Jonathan both have a hobby and a professional side in this as well. So it gives us, it's nice to get it. We have 3 different perspectives here. Okay. So as I understand it, this is the other thing that Jason and I talk about. Okay. We've been nose deep in this, okay, for a while now. And, we both know, him and I both know, we are not experts at this. Okay. And we're constantly finding out new stuff that we didn't know before. Okay. And I feel like both him and I are both very, very good at saying, oh, okay, we didn't know that. Let's think about that. Right. That's where this show is because I feel like you need to, nobody knows everything. Nobody, not one, no one, no, not even one hobbyist that it shoots down from the rooftops and says, this is studio scale. They'll tell you they don't know every single thing. Okay. And what upsets me and bothers me is when you're trying to talk to someone and they're like, nope, this is it. This is the way it is. You're wrong. And like, if I'm wrong about something, I'm gonna be like, oh, okay. Tell me what I'm wrong about. I want to know. I want to learn. I want to be better at what I'm doing. I don't want to be steadfast in saying I'm the best at this. I know everything about this. Please enlighten me and help me figure this out. Right.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, in my limited experience, is studio scale basically is trying to get your model as close to accuracy as you possibly can. Oh, wait, Marvin's here. I'm gonna have him join in.
Real quick,
Stuart.
Chris, I also think we have Stuart as well joining us.
Oh, hey.
Oh, okay.
Well.
That's not Marvin. That's Stuart. Hey, Stu, how's it going?
Hey.
So, okay, back to what I was saying. As accurate as possible.
Like always.
Hi, how's it going, Stu? As accurate as possible using the kit parts that were used by ILM or some whatever.
I think we had a little interference, Chris.
There you go.
There we go. I think it's catching up.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Sorry, I'm not sure who froze. I know we got a lot of guys on, but real quick, I'll just continue on what Chris was saying. One thing I say often on these shows is, modeling is similar to, like, in the sense, practicing law or practicing medicine, and I mean that in the way of, they call it practicing because you never reach a point where you're finished and you've completed every task that you now know and understand everything that is involved, and that's why I use that analogy. Second, to what Chris is saying as well in regards to learning something, rather than trying to contest and negate, every time I was told I was wrong about something, I actually looked at that looked at that as a plus, as a positive. I took that as, okay, this is information that's going to allow me to better understand what I'm doing wrong, how I'm doing it wrong, and where I can now improve. So rather than saying, well, no, it's only this or it's only that or it has to be this, and nothing you tell me is gonna allow me to believe differently, that's where things become a little problematic, right? No different than when we did the Lineage show. I think the term studio scale is very subjective. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 people here right now, and all 7 people might give a different opinion, and that's okay, right? There's really no right or wrong answer. There's small technicalities and there's small discrepancies that things can be challenged, but again, no right or wrong answer. With that being said, I do think it's more than just size. I would like to ask openly, though. I know Lee dropped off. Jonathan, you're still here. From a professional, not as a hobbyist, but from a
I think
professional.
I'm still here.
Oh, Lee, you're here. I'm sorry. I thought, was it Chris that dropped off? My apologies.
Yeah, Chris is
Chris
power.
dropped off. His power went out.
Okay. So maybe Jonathan and Lee, you can answer this separately. As professionals, right? Not hobbyists, but when you're working from a professional setting, like how is that approached? I know they call them filming miniatures. I mean, I don't know if there's a specific term when you're at your you're at the shop, you're at the studio, you're at work. So when you guys approach that outside the hobbyist perspective and from a professional perspective, as we heard from a commercial perspective, how do you approach building something if you have to replicate it, whether it's from a concept drawing or it's from a previous model that maybe you have to remake, maybe for a second season of something or a second movie? Any feedback or insight you can give us?
Do you want to go first, Jonathan?
Sure, I'll go first. And in my experience, it depends what you're doing. Like if you're building a miniature of something that really exists in the world, then you research what that is, you take photo measurements, build it as accurately as you can. It also depends what the shot is, what you're trying to get out of the shot. If it's something far away, you can build it small. If it's something, for miniatures, fire and water don't scale well. So if those two are involved, and pretty much anytime you can, you try to build it as big as you can, because you can add more detail, it'll look better. But it all depends on the budget, what the shot is. Is it a quick shot? Is it a beauty shot? What's all involved. So like I said, if it's something real, and you figure out what scale you're going to build it, then you do all the research and photographs and measurements that you can. If it's something that doesn't really exist, like I've worked in a couple of spaceships that don't, they're just drawings. And so you'll try to get, you'll get all the production designs, and you get drawings for it, and we'll decide, we're going to build this big because this is what this is what the time we have, and we'll be able to get a lot of detail at this size. And so it all kind of depends on what the shot is, what you're trying to get out of it, and budget, and whether it's a real thing or not.
Yeah, as Jonathan said, I mean, whether you're building something 50, whether you're building a miniature, whether you're building a set, or you're doing it even in CGI, you're just building what needs to be done to get the shot done. As within the budget, within the time, within what is needed. And so if you're close, you build it really big, or you only build a section of it. If you're far away, you make it small and cheap. And one of the things that should be remembered, and we're talking here really about studio scale replicas, I think, but when you're building stuff in the studio, if you're building miniatures or whatever, accuracy is kind of a bit subjective, really. Because, and to use a good example, I mean, if you use, say, the Millennium Falcon, it's not all about Star Wars, by the way. Studio scale's been around long before Star Wars, but if we use that as an example, there was a tiny little Millennium Falcon that went on the back of the Star Destroyer bridge, and best I can tell, that was just a very basic shape with almost what looked like a photo of the 32-inch miniature shrunk down and put onto decal material and then pasted on top, up to the full-size sets. But if you look at the detailing between that miniature, between the 3-foot miniature, the 5-foot miniature, the close-up sections that we use for some of the insert shots. Detailing, the individual detailing is different every single time. Every time they've rebuilt the Falcon as a full-size set, it's different. It's the detailing is different. If you step back and look at it, you go, yeah, that's the Falcon. But if you look at the detailing, every single version of it is different. You look at the Falcon that's at the Disneyland, or you look at the Falcon that's at Pinewood Studios, you know, it's different. It's completely different. So in production, you're not necessarily, you know, replicating exactly. You're getting, this is the ship or whatever it is. You know, you obviously don't want to make massive differences or anything else. You want it to look like it's the same thing, but it does change. Which then brings up a whole thing when you're doing a replica. Well, am I replicating the 2-inch Falcon, or am I replicating the 5-foot Falcon, or am I replicating that? You know that. You know, like in the original film, I think they built the dish on the Falcon like an oversized one that was you know, a couple, you know, just the dish was a few feet across for that shot when the TIE fighters fly by and you see the dish really close. Are you replicating that dish? That's different. That's where you're replicating those individual, but those individual models can be different. And that's all when you're in production, you're just trying to get the shot done.
Yeah. And I think that boils down to, like, as a collector, what are you wanting to collect? So if you're looking to collect a model like this shuttle, do you want this shuttle to be as close to the model or one of the models that was on set as physically possible, so that is when you have somebody come over to your house, you can be like, you know, and in your mind you can say, this is as close as it was. Like this is like what it was on set at ILM back, you know, in 79 or 80 or whatever, you know, that's what it was. You know, these are all the little model kit parts. You can tell that that's a model kit part. That's a model kit part. That's a model kit part. You know, do you want that, or do you want it to resemble it? You know, is it a fan art piece? Is it just about the resemblance and I just enjoy the model, or do I want to know that I have something that is a piece of lineage, a piece of history, you know? And I think that's the kind of the differentiator. And, you know, do you need a name for it? I feel like if we could make a guild for our little thing, it would be great to be able to say there's a name for it so that people would know, you know, because a customer needs to know something. You know, as a collector, it's nice to be able to say, you know, this is this, this is this, this is this, because it just makes everything easy, because then everybody's educated and you know what you're looking for. And then you can say, well, there's a value for that, there's a value for that, there's a value for that. And everybody knows, you know, what something's worth. But that doesn't exist. So the education just has to happen so that people are aware and they can educate themselves to say, you know, I can look with my eyes and I can see, you know, what I'm after and what really looks good to me, you know?
Yeah.
Ethan, even the size of these is based off of accuracy of the kit parts, right? Like, you're going to get your studio scale sized off of the accuracy of these kit parts.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking these kit parts and measuring how big that kit part is, and then measuring, okay, this panel next to it is so many millimeters, or this.
Right,
you know, the distance.
Right. That's so our method is literally in tenths of a millimeter, and that's how we do that's how our kit process goes. So
I mean, you can't do that for
another company's process is definitely not going to be that way, but our price point is going to be different. Our level, like our entire level, and the way that we built our business is completely different based upon how that whole process works. So our service level, the way that we deal with, you know, customer service and communication is different because of that level of detailing that goes into it, because obviously we get a lot more specific questions. So we have to gear that differently. So we've got specific people that help us with just doing that. Obviously we've got to communicate with research people. There's a whole different system for that. So it's a whole different ballgame.
So, but obviously you can't get kit parts off of that little tiny 1/4-inch Falcon that's on the back of the Star Destroyer. You know, that's just,
well, it wouldn't be kit parts. Yeah, no, it would have just been carbs firing in a picture or something like that. There was a miniature Tantive, I think, that was made of little brass parts or something like that. Like, yeah, the little miniatures were never even designed to be made from kit parts. Usually they might have been maybe a couple of model kit parts, but usually it was like, you know, little bent pieces of metal and just random stuff just to make the shape because it was just like a shadow. All they wanted was the silhouette. They were looking for a thumbnail, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And those, some of those are actually would be really cool to try to recreate if you could get really good pictures of them, just because they would make really cool desk pieces. But
even as hobbyists, though, to follow up on your question, Chris, yeah, I mean, if you're starting from scratch, right? If you're doing a scratch build, and I think both Lee and Jonathan can agree with this. Jonathan, specifically, where you've done the scratch work on the ties, the bomber, the TIE fighter, where if you're starting from scratch, and that's why they call it scratch building. You're starting from scratch. And if you're trying to figure out, okay, is this 2 inches or is this 1.5 inches? When you take that kit piece from whatever tank or race car or whatever kit you pulled it from, that allows you to measure and gauge, okay, this isn't 3 inches long. This is only 1 inch long. When I place this in this area, I now know that this shouldn't be, 3 times as large, or it should be 3 times as large. And that allows you to get to the quote unquote scale, right? The term, the term studio scale, it's very subjective, and it's causing a lot of confusion. But I think when you're starting from scratch, and even if you are building a filming miniature, if you say, hey, I got to build something that's never really existed before, I got to build this spaceship that somebody just scratched out or painted, to get that spaceship to look visually and aesthetically appealing and sort of normalized to the human eye. When you're filming that on screen, whether it's a window or a wing, that has to be in scale with, the ship or the tank or whatever it is that you're, building to completion. And I think that's where, again, things get misconstrued. And what we've been seeing a lot lately, I don't mean like just the last few days, but the last few weeks or even months, hence having talked about doing this a while back, Chris, was the fact that it comes down just to size and size only. And that's another issue because, for a while when we started these shows, it was just quoted that everything was 1/24th of the original size. Well, no, I mean, if you take an X-Wing, there's a 1/24th X-Wing, a 1/18th X-Wing. And I don't want to keep using Star Wars as reference. As Lee said, studio skill doesn't just relate to Star Wars, and Jonathan, having worked on multiple other franchises, as well, that it's just easy to fall back on. But, TIE Bomber being 1/72 versus 1/24th, so on and so forth. The AT-ST walkers, in Jedi, you have multiple variations of sizes. So it doesn't come down to just size. But I do think that, appropriating something, or like as Ethan mentioned, maybe calling it fan art, or, a likeness to is one thing. Reproducing something or making an exact copy, or as close to an exact copy as you can, I think falls more in line with the, general term studio scale. At least that's at this point where as far as I've come, what my opinion seems to be. But again, I'm always learning and always open to learning. But I think it's good that we're having this discussion, and I hope that it does help, educate even each other as we're talking here openly.
Yeah. Do you have something you want to talk about in your hands?
Yeah, well, the reason why I ran out was I wanted to grab this off my shelf. It's only a piece of a replica. Sorry, the whole thing's about 3 foot long. But the reason why I brought this up, this is from 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is the first spaceship, or the front of the first spaceship you see in 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's seen on screen for about 3 or 4 seconds. The original miniature, we have no idea where it is. But why you were talking about, kit parts are important and things like that, is that I had an idea of the shape of this thing. It's pretty straightforward. It's an octagonal. But we had no real reference. There's one concept drawing of it that lists it as being 2 inches long. And that's about it. So I was doing some research, and basically this whole miniature, which is about 3 times as long as what this is when I put this together, was scaled pretty much because of this part right here and these parts up here. So this part up here, a friend of mine pointed out to me, it was off of an Airfix Bloodhound model kit. It's the chassis off of a Jeep type of thing. And these are windows from a German railway building. They're actually like the window frames of a high rise.
Mm.
And
cool.
these were
Wow.
known, actually. These were known. This one I didn't know at the time. So basically what I did when I was doing this was I had 2 photos of the original picture. Luckily, one was from one side and one was from the other side. And I had one concept art, and that one concept art had a note on the bottom, 2 foot 10 inches. Why they chose that instead of 3 foot, I don't know. But it was scribbled on, who knows,
Yeah.
But so what I did was I roughed out the shape, and then what I did was I 3D modeled, because I did this in 3D, although this is actually all styrene that was CNC and laser card and kit parts and whatever. But I 3D modeled this. I bought this kit and I 3D modeled this, and then I 3D modeled these windows. The interesting thing that came out with these windows, I didn't even realize, is on this side there's 5, and on this side there's 4.
Of course there is.
Of course,
I love
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but I literally. So the thing is now I had. Sorry, I'm mirror imaged on the camera, so that's why I keep getting away. So I basically had literally from this model kit part and these model kit parts, I then scaled the whole thing, and I jiggled it around, and obviously I'm limited to the resolution of the picture, but I kind of was like, okay, that's that big and that's that big, and then and it came out to almost exactly 2 foot 10 inches, which was hilarious.
Wow.
Because
That's
that
awesome.
was what was on the concept art. So I went, okay, I think I must be. So the thing is, this is an example of scratch. I say scratch built because this was done in 3D and then CNC, but it's the same sort of thing. I did it in 3D.
It's still scratch building. Totally
it's
still
technically
scratch
built.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't 3D printed, although I am actually converting this over to be 3D printed because some other people wanted it. But the thing is, this is a good example of R&D. I'd say I had 2 photos, 1 concept art. It's in the film for 3 seconds, barely see it. But literally, I scaled it. So is this studio scale? Well, the original miniature probably went in a dumpster 50 years ago. We have no clue where the original went. There is literally 2 photos of the original miniature. How accurate is this? Well, this was as accurate as I could make it to the original. So I consider this studio scale accurate, but it's probably within 90-95% accurate. I certainly would never say that it's 100% accurate because there's certain details and bits and pieces I don't know, like the whole back end of it, which is the rear end of it. There's no photos of that, so I had to just make it up. But anyway, what I was trying to highlight was that I scaled it from these 2 kit parts and then worked out the rest from that. And awesome. that to me is what studio scale is. You're recreating what was originally built. That's really what it boils down to with studio scale.
It's basically the only way you can get the true size of the model. Just take the term studio scale out of it. Yeah. The only way you're going to get the real size is by using those kit parts and measuring on them.
Well, yeah, but also remember that a lot of studio scale stuff doesn't use kit parts. I mean,
true.
Or you only use a few. I mean, Slave One. Okay, the bottom of Slave One and the wings of Slave One is all covered, but the whole main body there's very little kit parts on it. The cloud car. Look at the twin pod cloud car. Yes, there's a few little kit parts here and there, and that does help give you a scale, but there's very little. If you look at things like Star Trek Enterprise, you can make a studio scale replica of the Enterprise, but there's no kit parts to scale from. So the kit parts are there they help a lot. They really do. And that's why
the other part of
kit parts.
Yeah.
The other part of studio scale, the term studio scale, is the materials that are used. Okay. So that, in the strict sense, that is using the original styrene and wood and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Like, people cast parts back then. They 3D print parts now. Like, if you were to take the walker from Andor that Tippett Studios made, the whole thing was printed. Like, do I really want to make a 3D printed walker just to be studio scale? No, I don't. I'll make it out of something else instead of 3D printing. That's the part where I agree that that's what studio scale means. But it's use what you have, but make it as accurate as you can. Like 3D printing. If you're scaling it, the kit parts, if you're scanning parts and using those, or you're casting pieces, it's let's take, for example, Jason Eaton is an amazing builder, right?
Yep.
He's freaking gorgeous. And he kind of chimed, and he doesn't really care what the term studio scale means. He's one of the old timers, and I kind of understand what he said, what he meant. I'll just read, like he just said, trying to get it accurate, basically just trying to get it accurate as possible, and getting from A to B using whatever materials you can to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Sorry, I want to jump in. My 2 cents really quick on 3D printing, because I've had a lot of people who kind of I 3D print. I 3D printed for a long time. It's a tool. It's nothing more than a tool, and it's not a magic button. It's not like CGI is not a magic button. It's a tool in the toolbox. Mm-hmm. What you use is sort of because if you're not using 3D printing, then you shouldn't be using a lathe, or you shouldn't be using an airbrush, or you shouldn't be using, you should be using sticks and fire and stones, because it's just a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's another tool. CNC machines, laser cutters, they're all another tool in the toolbox. And some of them are really handy, but they're, you still need to have skill to be able to use it. Trust me, I've been 3D printing for years, but I've only just bought a 3D printer. I've always farmed it out to somebody else and given them the 3D parts to print. And there's quite a learning process just to even getting your 3D model to actually physically come out. So it's a tool.
I just recently started printing myself, just little parts and little figures and stuff. It takes a lot of work to actually use that. What I'm talking personally, okay, just myself. I don't feel like a studio scale model is two hunks of resin that you put together and that's it. I feel like building it and putting parts on and doing more than just taking two or three 3D printed painting it. I feel like that's a little bit more on this art and artistic side, just like rather than
that would be really hard to do, honestly, because 3D printed material is inherently, it's just not going to work because it's so weak, and it'll just slowly just melt on your shelf if you do something that's that big. So it's like use the tool. If you want to make studio scale models and go buy them from Game Body and know that it's not like perfect, or use the community, and if there's parts out there, start collecting them and doing your thing and building your studio scale stuff. Like, use the groups and ask questions, because like a 3D printed studio scale model, a big model, needs to be integrally supported, like almost 100% from the inside out. Like it will not. There's no longevity with a 3D printed model. Like, we started our business with 3D printed models and quickly shifted that to the side and started using them only for testing purposes, because they will slowly degrade. They're just not, they're not useful for long-term collectability, but you can support them and make them last. You can fill them with foam, you can fill them with wood and metal, you can do all kinds of things to make them last. So they're great for the hobby. You just got to learn about it, So
Jonathan, you've been kind of quiet. Let's hear what you have to say a little bit.
Well, one of the from a completely selfish point of view, one of the things I like about 3D printing is the more people that 3D print their parts means the more model kits I can buy without trouble.
It's definitely a money saver.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah,
but for me, it's it's kind of like if you look at like the Icons TIE Fighter. I mean, it's a casting off of a real TIE Fighter, supposedly, maybe a pyro model. But if you see one, all the hatches are all wrong. Like the back hatch, the top hatch, all that stuff is all wrong.
Yes.
But the casting itself, like the wing stars are all right, and the body is right. To me, that's still studio scale. If the hatches are wrong, but it's like my TIE Fighter that I built. It's pretty close. There's definitely a couple things on there that are still driving me nuts that are wrong, but it's I consider it studio scale. It's pretty darn close.
Now, would you rather have a pyro casting out of a mold that's like degraded to hell and it's all like bleh, just because it was from, you know, a Pyro X-Wing fuselage, just because you know it was there at ILM? Or would you rather have somebody, you know, get a Pyro casting, know that it was blah, 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 scan it, fix it, and then get a clean one that was from the original casting, but it was fixed? Like,
Well,
the mold is destroyed, so it's not really what it was at ILM, because the mold is just melted and turned to goo, and, you know, it's a casting that never was, you know, it was never that way before. So I'm just curious what people think about that, because I've thought about that. Like, you know, people buy the old molds and stuff and then just keep on recasting them all the time. And you know, those molds are just shot to shit.
Yeah.
Well,
I've always been curious about that.
Guys, this is that kind of lends it to this question right here. So different. Lineage is different from studio scale because Lineage is taking a piece, like if you what Ethan was just talking about, taking a piece and casting it that from a Lineage piece that came on set. That's different than building your own studio scale model using kit parts. You're using the same parts they used, but you're not using the actual kit parts that they used.
But that's why I always use the term studio scale replica, because it's not, you're using the same bits, or you're trying to, you know, you may, you know, this is a studio scale replica because the kit parts and the EMA Plastrop parts are the same parts. There's no lineage on this at all. But this is probably one of the more accurate studio scale replicas that I have, because you can't really get more accurate than that Tamiya piece, you know. So this has no lineage, but this is also 99% accurate studio scale. So it is
and I think the lineage. Sorry, I think the lineage question comes up too. I always link it back to something like provenance, right, or lineage, hence lineage, the line of. So can you take that and directly connect it to something that was on screen, no matter what the franchise? Can you trace this piece back to that particular, movie and or TV show? Whereas when you're, as Lee just mentioned, when you're building something, whether it be a found parts piece, a model of sorts, that is a replica. You're using the same parts, the same real world parts, the same kit bash parts, but it's just a replica. And I think, that's a good question, right? Because that sometimes gets confused as well. And there are lineage pieces that exist with models. There's plenty that show up in auctions and such. And as you mentioned, Ethan, sometimes people do like the idea, although the mold is, busted and shrunk and blown out, or just like you said, kind of melted. People will clean it up and fix it up and say, hey, this is lineage. And that does add some enticement and some value to a few collectors. There are a few that fall under that umbrella, and that's okay, right? But that's getting more along the lines of preference. But nonetheless, a good question. But back to the studio scale stuff, to go not to be repetitive, but how does everybody feel if we were to just narrow it down to size and size only? Do we all agree that I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but I feel confident that I could when I say everybody here would say that it's not just about size and size only, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
For me, it's more accuracy and size.
Yeah.
That's the big thing for me is accuracy.
I got into an argument. I got into an argument one time about what studio scale, and I said, well, if you build it out of if you build it at the exact same size, but you build it out of macaroni, to me, it's not studio scale.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's true. I mean, honestly, that's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about the size of, being as close as possible to the film miniature, with also gaining as close as accurate as possible. Like kind of what Chris was saying earlier. So,
and
kind
that
of
also,
combination.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lee.
I was saying the other thing that we haven't kind of touched on here is also the paint and finish, because when you say, oh well, if you've got a 3D printed and you buy this file or whatever, and it's pretty accurate. I mean, I've got like a Y-wing 3D printable model. I haven't printed it yet, but I've got one, and I've looked at it, and I've scratch built one Y-wing, and I've built 2 resin ones, and so I know it pretty well, and the details are already there. But if I was to print that at studio scale, it would. I mean, the detailing is correct, the parts are accurate, it is a big blob of resin, and and that would be the same if I bought a resin kit from Steve or Mike or somebody who did resin kits. It would still be a big blob of resin. But then the second part of it for me is accurately replicating the paint job, because that really is what makes it that's what people see, and when it boils down to it. And I think that should be addressed as well. Is not, but yes, it needs to be the same scale. It needs to have some sort of lineage as far as dimensionality, kit parts, or whatever. Whether it's directly lineage from the real pieces, or just using the same pieces. But then there's the finish on the outside, and I think, because I've got some pieces, like my V shuttle, which is there. That's just a blob of resin. It was bought as a kit, and it's a simple paint job. But I still consider that a studio scale replica, even though it's just essentially a roto resin cast piece.
Lee, can I ask
think
where
the paint job? I think the aspect of the paint job kind of is probably secondary, because you have some people that are really good at painting things accurately, right? And I don't think anybody can get it exact. Nobody can get it exact.
No.
And you get it as close as you possibly can. Obviously, if it looks really bad, you can't really say, "Hey, this is a studio scale model," right? Like, it's painted like if it's really not, if it's totally different color or whatever the case may be, But I think that's where painting isn't really talked about text, because it's subjective. Like,
It is.
I think, though,
I think
in the commercial market,
ahead,
like,
sorry.
if you're going to buy one, if you're going to buy a Y-wing and you're looking to buy pre-finished, pre-painted Y-wing, maybe what you should potentially look into is go on to Google Images, look up studio scale Y-wing, go grab a few pictures, or ask on the forums for somebody who has some of the books to snap you a couple of photos of the Y-wing, so that you know that it's the real deal. And then you take that with you and you put that in your, on your computer or on your phone, so that you know what the Y-wing looks like, so that when you're browsing around to look to go buy a Y-wing, you say, okay, I know what the real painted Y-wing looks like. Because, like, when I first got into looking at Star Wars stuff, I didn't know what the real paint jobs looked like either, because you watch the movies, you enjoy the movies, you don't get to see them just sitting there, and you don't,
You're not paying
you
attention.
get to enjoy the shapes, you get to enjoy the paints, cool, but you don't really know. So when you're looking, if you're looking for something that's accurate, go get some research done, and if you're going to spend, $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 on a paint job, you want to make sure that whoever your artist is going to be, whether that's a personal artist or a professional or a factory or whatever, depending upon how much money you want to spend, should dictate, like, if you're going to spend $5,000, make sure that thing is damn good.
Let me point out something.
From there.
Let me point out something. Okay, so John Simmons, amazing painter. Okay, everybody loves his paintwork, right? And a lot of people is kind of one of the guys who does studio scale right. Okay, John's painting. I have a lot of John's pieces. He puts his own flair, completely accurate. Okay, he does do a lot of accurate. Don't get me wrong. Okay. But he does add his own artistic value to it.
Sure.
So
yeah, it should be. It should be.
Yeah, and I enjoy that. I like the fact that the artist put a little bit of his view into it. Okay,
Personal
it's
time,
not perfectly scaled.
Yeah.
It doesn't have every single blast mark. I enjoy the artistic side of it as well. Okay,
But Chris, let me ask
Jason.
you. No, okay. I'm not trying to open a can of worms here, but this is where the conversation might turn a little bit and get a little bit more interesting. So I have a question both for you and then for Lee after. So, okay, so for the painting part, you're right. It's subjective, right? Because you're not going to be able to narrow down every little last marking. It's impossible to do. However, I think it's all about in the attempt and the execution. Now, if you take something that you know for a fact is yellow and you paint it a light green, you can chalk it up to artistic liberty, but you can't say, hey, this is a model replica, a studio replica, because you're not replicating it. You may have replicated it halfway, right? You may have replicated the builds, but you didn't replicate the paint job. Now, I want to turn that towards, I guess that was more of a statement, less of a question, but more for Lee. So, Lee, where you held up the Space Odyssey piece. Now, if I went ahead and built that, but it was about 45% accurate to yours, whether it was a lack of detail or design or a difference in color, maybe I painted it, a tone of yellow and I moved some pieces around, or I sort of narrowed down some pieces. If I built that to about 45% accuracy, would you consider that a model replica of your original?
It kind of depends, because I think the key word that I think Ethan was just mentioning, or maybe Chris, is research. I think for me, the key to studio scale, and whether it's researching the shape, size, the dimensions, the materials used, the paint, the painting technique, the painting colors, all of that. I spend more time when I'm doing a build on research than I do on the actual build. Way more. So, and the thing is that, and I don't always do it almost, because that's the whole point of a community is sometimes you ask, you're going, look, anybody know what this is, or anybody know what color this is, or what paint was used here, or whatever. I mean, the whole point is to share the information. I try to share the information as much as I can as well. So it's research. So if you built something that was quite different than, say, my replica, if you showed me, because one of the things I like to do when I do a couple of exhibitions a year, or go to a conference or whatever, or a convention, and I really like to talk to people about the research that I'm doing on these, because that to me is sort of the important. It's like it's almost like you're like doing a PhD and you're justifying your thesis or whatever, and you're telling, well, this is how I came to this conclusion. This is how I came to this conclusion of this particular representation of 2012. If you came up with something, that looked different, but you showed me your research, I'd be like, okay, maybe I got it wrong, because as I say, I don't know. I think it's right. The other thing, I mean, you say you painted it yellow. The reality is, I don't know what color this was painted, because the only two pictures of this that exist were black and white. Okay. These panels could have been browns and beiges. This could have been a tan color, or it could have been yellow. I don't know. I absolutely don't know. All I've got are those two black and white photos and how it appears on screen. I have actually seen somebody who did a drawing of this particular satellite, and they made a bunch of the panels a kind of a reddish brown color. And it kind of made it was like I almost painted it like that, because I went, that actually looks more interesting. It gives it, and we're all, spaceships are always gray and black and white. I'm like, no, there's some color in it. That's why everybody loved Thunderbirds and stuff like that, because there's just color everywhere.
Does that model still exist?
No.
And there wasn't one that survived.
As far as I know, there's only two models from 2001 that survived.
Okay.
One of them's only a piece. Only one of them's a piece. Yeah. So, but the only one that survived is in Los Angeles at the Academy Museum now, and that was white and grays. So
okay.
So certain pieces, it does leave it open to interpretation.
And especially as they're older, and if there's no color pictures or whatever. Yeah.
But if we do have something where, let's say, we knew concrete that was 100% accurate, and I did it halfway through and called it accurate, would you then contest it and say, well, that's just artistic liberty? Or would you say, okay, well, that's your version of a studio scale? You see what I mean? Like, when does it start to drift outside the term studio scale replica? Like, when is it safe to say or not?
It's your research. How have you researched and replicated something? It's for me, for me, the definition of studio scale is it's the same size, the same shape, the same colors, the same details as the original. It's like I go see something in a museum and I replicate that, or I see something in a movie and I replicate it. If yours is a different size, a different shape, a different color, I'll be like, well, show me, why do you think that's accurate?
Okay, so it leaves it open for discussion. Stuart, if you don't mind,
like, you're not done, keep on going. Good job. Like if you're partway finished, keep on going. Like you're almost there. You're halfway there.
Stuart, I just wanted to bring you in for a second. So, you joined us a few minutes late, and for those who are unfamiliar, just a little background. At least from what I know, the rapport that we have, you're an enthusiast, a hobbyist, a builder, collector, correct?
Yep. Yep.
And for those
Not
who do
not a collector.
well, I didn't know
I
if
don't
you
collect.
I didn't know if you collected your own pieces. I meant like your own work.
No, yeah, okay, a little. So basically, I'm quite odd in the sense that I've done very little. So I joined the RPF in 2007, I believe, mainly to build a TIE bomber, and I built that over a course of a year, and I sold that to a guy in Paris. I put it on the RPF junkyard, and it was gone within an hour of selling it. So I thought, this is quite a good thing. Maybe I sold it too cheap. So, yeah. So, what will my next project be? So I thought, hey, I'll just something easy. I may go for a 5-foot Falcon. So, so in a sense, that is my second studio scale model that I've done. So from a tiny little TIE bomber to this thing is like insane. But like
so you're doing a replica of the Taj Mahal next or something.
Yeah. So as Lee said, a lot of the time was in the research. So it was years on the RPF of researching this thing, along with lots of others, to an eventual build of the model. But I get the pleasure out of building, not collecting. So as soon as I've built something, I'm happy to sell it and move on.
As somebody
looking at it,
as
Johnny boy,
building, hey Johnny,
the
master is here. Stuart, as somebody who's been building the 5-foot Falcon, now I've seen pictures. I've discussed it with you a little bit. Now, I mean, I've seen you get down to pieces. I mean, there was one that you had asked me about, and I almost, I don't know why I corrected you. I said, you have the wrong kit, because the piece was so small that it's one of those things that if you dropped it, it would have just disappeared, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
I'm bringing that example up because you're going down to like the most minute detail. Like if you were to scrutinize every inch of this thing, it would be, 99.9%. With that being said, as a studio scale replica, your opinion, can you share a little bit about that real quick? Just about like your view and why you want so accurate, or why you consider it.
Okay. So the inside of the model is, I didn't care how I was going to build it. Like, I didn't care what the inside were going to be like, or the materials. It was just, I wanted the outside to look like in the same size as a studio scale 5-foot Falcon. Part for part, actual kit parts, same size, but materials didn't worry me. So ultimately I came to the process of using MDF, CNC'd MDF, beams, ribs, and they were overlaid with vacuum formed ABS domes in quarter sections, oversized quarter sections. This is the same as what John's going to have for his build, his commission. So, and then, but I knew all the panels were going to be styrene as per ILM. All the kit parts were going to be as per original. Castings that ILM were using that utilize castings were going to be castings, because I ain't going to buy like 50 Sea Labs and 26 Aurora M8 carriers. There's just no way, even ILM didn't do that. So, I just followed that process. But as Lee said, it's just years of research, guys. Just searching this thing. You build something and then another bloody picture comes along that you've never seen before, and you have to rip something apart or add this, and it's even ongoing now. I'm still finding the odd part. A New Hope version, which is what this is, it's funny. You just find more and more details just pop up in pictures that you've been looking at for years, and you just see something different, and you've got to add it. And the other thing, we're talking about lineage. My guns, the end of the guns, the quad laser guns, are actually taken from the 5-foot Falcon molds of the guns.
Ooh, that's awesome.
That were used.
Cool.
So they have lineage. Dave Jones built the guns, and they're from his molds that he supplied the group. So we took castings from those molds, which were very good. So there is a bit of lineage on this build, which is nice. It's nice to have something like that. So yeah, it's getting to finishing, along with doing bits and pieces for John at the same time. But yeah, but to me, is studio scale. It's same size, it's same detailing, it's not necessarily the same guts on the inside construction. I mean, the 5-foot Falcon was a plywood donut milled on a milling machine. The domes were acrylic in one piece, top and bottom. Wood for the walkways and jaw boxes and docking rings, whereas I've used like different materials. But end of the day, it's the same size.
Stuart, you basically hodgepodge, making your own in the inside and outside, keeping it aesthetically the same as
it's faithful on the outside. Yeah.
So, all right, yeah, but I mean, you're just building straight from kit parts, straight from accurate reference, straight from measurements used off of kit parts, right?
Yeah, there was years of laying out kit parts. I mean, you take like the mandible walls of the Falcon, you lay out all those kit parts when you've got them, and basically you're blueprinting from the start on how things look, all the gaps, all the spaces.
That's awesome.
The other thing is I was quite odd, and no one has done it my way as yet, where I used to ascertain all the pits positions from the New Hope, like the big ones underneath. I mapped out all the styrene panels beforehand with all the chips, all the little notches, using that nibbler to ascertain where the pit positions were.
Okay.
I mean, that's probably insane, but it worked for me.
Are you ever going to paint it?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got the Archive X paint here. Yeah.
Or are you going to send it over to John to paint it? Put it in strap it to his back and swim it across the ocean to get over to you. Yeah.
So, John, you came in a little late. I don't think many people know who you are in the model world, so you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I mean, look at there's some big names in this room, and I appreciate you guys having me on. But to chuck in my 2 cents about what studio scale is, it's replicating something that was made by ILM or whatever movie studio at the time, the best of your ability, with the original parts if possible, the kit parts and that sort of thing. But you're trying to create a forgery, like Guy said on one of your previous shows. I mean, that was a good way of explaining it. A forgery.
Yeah.
You could. Not that this would ever happen, but if you could blindfold an ILM and put 2 of the original models next to each other and try and kid them which one was yours, to try and do that, it would be studio scale. Something you mentioned there, Stu, like the thousands of hours of research you have put into that Falcon, or anyone doing their project. And recently what we've seen, I've woken up to all these messages, literally floods of people just arguing like mad about like certain companies making replicas, studio scale models and that sort of thing. I think a lot of people are also getting hurt about the amount of time and effort and hours have been spent poring over research and then for someone just to do it in CAD and just make it available in stone to the masses.
Mm.
And the people that have put in all the hard work have got no mention or anything, and all this sort of thing. I think that is muddying the waters on the term studio scale and upsetting a lot of people. You know,
to me, it's getting sort of ugly again. The terminology of it, like Lee and Guy recently.
Well,
Guys using the magic word. Yeah.
But we're trying not to head that way. We're trying to stay away from.
That's fine. Yep. Okay.
We don't want to piss on anybody. We don't want to start any arguments. We're just talking about the facts of research and develop of kit parts and what education.
Yeah.
We're staying away from all that controversy, and that's not what we want to do here.
No, that's cool.
I think what Stu's trying to say is that there are people. I mean, we all do a lot of research, and the thing that I think that confuses me, and I think that's what confuses and annoys other people, is that why can't other people do the same sort of research? I mean, especially some of this topics is out there. It's not that hard to find. I mean, sorry, I don't want to cut off John, but I did want to bring up DeAgostini and DeAgostini's, Falcon, which obviously has introduced an awful lot of people to studio scale, as it were, because and I bought it, I assembled it, I've corrected as much as I could, which was laborious and cost me as much again. But the thing that confused me about DeAgostini's build, and I'm not bashing them because they've made something available to thousands of people that would never have been available. But the work that they put into making that and engineering it and manufacturing it, it would have taken zero extra work to make that accurate. The amount of time it takes to tool it, to produce it, to ship it, to manufacture it, to distribute it around the world, all of that. If you make a part that is wrong or you make it right, it takes exactly the same amount of work. And I was amazed every time I got an extra piece. And even then, when I started to paint it, and I'm trying to reference photos with panels, and I'm going, well, that panel's in the wrong place, and that's in the wrong place. I actually had to question whether anybody at DeAgostini ever actually looked at a photo of the 32-inch Falcon, or if they just took a master replicas and shipped it off to China and said, make this. Because so anyway, I know it's a hot topic, and I don't want to point specific fingers, but the thing I think what it boils down to is that if you do the research, and it's not, some of it is hard, some of it takes years, but some of it is easy enough to come by. The time it takes to make something accurate versus time it takes to make something wrong is the same.
Yeah,
exactly. I was just going to say, there's love in the research and there's love in the building. But they each go hand in hand, It's like each takes the time. But like Lee said, there's more time in the researching than the actual building.
Yes.
So this question, following on that Falcon conversation, EFX and MR, they're classified as studio scale, but today with more information, they aren't considered overly accurate. Are they still studio scale?
Who wants to take this?
I'd say they are.
I consider them studio scale, but they're not. Sorry, studio scale, but not necessarily as accurate as they could.
I feel like they're more artistic representations.
I think there's certain instances, right? So some of the MR ones are more interpretations, but I will say that there's a little bit more substance there because they were able to go into the archives, scrutinize these pieces.
That's what I mean.
Go over various details and at least try, right? At that time, we're going back 17, 18 years. So at least try to execute to the best of their ability to match it as close as possible. Okay. So then you move up a little further, roughly.
Until you pick them up and they weigh.
I think the material is wrong. But then if you go over to EFX and you look at something like the TIE Fighter that was originally done by Nyson Studios, that tends to be a little bit more accurate both in size and detail. And again, I think having access to both reference and using the original model kits and kit bashing it together, before it was mass produced. I think that's a little bit more closer in line with, the overall term of studio scale. But yeah, I think both EFX and MR, to be fair, fall under the umbrella of studio scale, specifically because of the amount of research and time, effort, and energy that went into trying to execute them at that period.
A repainted master replica Millennium Falcon you can't beat, unless
or
you
even a
build
repainted
by
Y
scratch.
looks really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Andy.
Yeah, the Y.
Preston's.
That's one of the reasons I brought up paint earlier, actually, just before John came on, was that the Master Replica's Y-Wing, apart from it weighing, I don't know, about 10 kilos, it's accurate. The detailing is really good, but the paint job is complete rubbish, and it really lets it down. You give it to John, and it absolutely becomes a studio scale. It is a studio scale replica. It's just got a bad paint job.
Yeah,
I think that's the
your
flaw
term
that
there,
we've
Lee,
seen
replica
from
studio scale
factories.
replica is a good term. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On the commercial side, we've seen this on in the factory system, and I think it's something that we're going to be interested in experimenting with in the future with other properties, because we want to remain as private with working with paint and stuff like that as possible. But there are other subjects that we're going to be getting into where we do want to produce larger quantities just as business sense. And we're very interested to see how far we can push certain groups and certain factory paint jobs, because, I haven't been happy with just about anything that I've seen that's come out for paint jobs in statues or anything lately. And I think it boils down to just a matter of what people are paying for cost, because I know even in Asia, like, those guys are highly skilled. It's just that they're getting paid by the layer, and it's about like how much I feel like you pay, how much the art director, whoever that's going to be, pays attention to the project. How are you going to send paint samples? Are you going to send a video of, whoever's going to produce your prototype? Are you going to send it layer by layer by layer and show them this is how you paint this project, one layer at a time, so that they can actually make the masks appropriately, and you create a process with them to do something accurately, and then you pay for 15, 20 layers instead of paying for 5, and you say, okay, well, that's the price it's going to be. If you want something that's like the best, then that's how much it's going to cost, and you just that's what it is. And I think it's like you're trying to figure out a balance, right? And that's going to fall into different levels of companies. Say, like, my company is going to be this particular level, and my company is going to be this particular level, and it's whatever you're shooting for. But on like we would not exist if it wasn't for you guys, all the researchers that have helped us, and everybody that we've worked with so far has requested to remain anonymous, and that's the only reason why they don't exist, on the box for everything that we've done. But they're all extremely well taken care of, and it's because of those people that we're able to do the work that we can do in a timely manner without having to spend the years of research on our own. But we have learned how to scout parts like probably 100 times faster than we would have without, just because of being able to work with everybody here, and the conversations and the video calls and going through pictures with people and all that kind of stuff, and walking through the process and just being able to learn. Like, I can't even imagine how much Justin's been able to learn, especially going through the Slave One project that we just finished, and the closet of like 300 model kits that we have now.
My whole office was just full of model kits.
I had to move all mine to a second. I had to move mine to a second storage bin because they were flooding my whole garage. I couldn't,
like in this like niche of studio scale. If you're going to do it commercially, it's a fine balance between the business side and then working with talented people, right? Like, you cannot do it as just putting together models. Like, you have to have the research people that understand how these things go together, what parts are used. You have to have people that are skilled at painting, understand technique. You have to learn from them. Like, I've painted for 30 years and I'm having to relearn technique for painting Star Wars stuff because it's different. It's a totally different process than painting World War
Yeah,
II
you're
and tanks and stuff. Like,
In all honesty,
I could
Ethan,
technically paint a tank and an airplane a heck of a lot better than a Star Wars model, but
Ethan.
because it's a detailed thing, but it's totally different than Star Wars stuff. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's a totally different technique, and if you don't follow that technique, it looks more like a real world tank than a Star Wars ship.
Yeah.
Like I've seen talented painters who paint tanks, okay, apply that to Star Wars, and it just
Doesn't look right.
it looks good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good, but it doesn't look like a Star Wars ship. Like in the movie, it just doesn't.
And I
Yeah,
totally understand it because it's all about shooting it. It's all about video. It's all about video from the 70s and 80s, not even video from today. It's all about those old cameras and shooting something specifically for that type of contrast, you know, and having 10 minutes to paint it, or however long they had, you know.
John can attest more to that. Like, he was a tank painter, and then he started painting Star Wars ships, right, John?
Yeah, I did the whole touring the model shows and writing for magazines and getting paint sponsors and doing all that sort of thing. Washes, highlights, color modulation, filters, oil rendering, all that sort of thing. Pigments, all that. And then all you need is an airbrush. And that's it. And that's all you use for Star Wars modeling because, as you just said, Ethan, they're on time restraints. And Jonathan, you must know about this. Get the job done in the time, move on to the next.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's in my opinion, that's why they look like they did. But it doesn't mean that they look rushed or bad. It's just
it's interesting.
It's very stylized.
Yeah. It's a very interesting way, like, to be so careful and yet so quickly done. Like, you know when you're doing it, you're like, okay, you could do this really quick. But at the same time, you're like, you know, as you're doing it, you're like, if you didn't know what you were doing, you could really mess this up.
See, like,
you know?
if I tried to paint something with detail, I struggle. If I'm painting a Star Wars model, it's so basic and easy. It has a technique, and it's mostly just like spritz and spray and, you know, splashes of paint. And if I tried to paint an actual tank to look like a real world tank, I don't think I could do it. I really don't.
I remember,
but like masking and stuff is really important. Like doing the masking and breaking things apart and stuff like that.
Huge.
And factories usually, unless you pay for that, they're not going to do a whole lot of masking for you and break up the layers. And these are just important things that you have to like put into your contracts and set aside and set apart. And all those things raise up your prices and stuff like that. And it's a big thing, you know, and it's all about like how much time can I physically devote to one project,
right?
You know, and for us, that's why we try to keep all commissions like very low, and we do them ourselves just because we don't want to even attempt it.
What were you saying, Jason?
So I was going to say on the paint topic, specifically with the Star Wars franchise, again, because I don't want to keep going back into the Star Wars realm of things, but when we first started deconstructing things, right, and really like deep diving from the research part, I remember saying to you, I said, you know, when people look at like a kid's drawing or painting, I can do that, right? Well, I said, you know, trying to paint a Star Wars model is almost like trying to copy a kid's drawing. For some people, it tends to be a little bit more difficult, right? Because if you're doing like, let's say, a plane or a tank or a race car, and you have to do a very even, clean, straightforward paint job, it's a little bit more easy to replicate. But when you have to replicate something that's sloppy, messy, hey, we get this on screen. Hey, we got to shoot this again. Hey, this piece popped up. You know, glue it on, you know, paint it, get it back on there. When you're trying to emulate, not like the masking sections, the red lines, but like when you start getting into like the real world used and abused aspects of the models where they're gritty and you know, blast marks and they're dingy. Replicating those, I feel sometimes can be difficult for some because it's a very, like you said, very rushed, sort of haphazard approach that was unintentional at the time. It was, as you know, some here know that it was basically like a time thing. But it eventually led to a very specific look and a very specific style to applying these paints. Like John said, John, you went through numerous aspects of, you know, learning about mixing paints and colors and how they work and layering and all of that, and then you realize, hey, I could take my paintbrush and basically go to town and deliver, or
Yeah, there isn't many other painting techniques or styles in the scale model hobby where you literally hold the needle of the airbrush a few millimeter away from the body of the kit and spray. You wouldn't do that on anything else, But that's again what makes it so attractive for me and fun, that it's a whole new style of painting. The movie industry in the 70s and 80s and 90s, their style of paint work of making it look real world. I went from model tanks that had to jump off the page, that were highlighted on a white background and stark and harsh, and you'd have to do the panel lines wash and all that sort of thing to make things details pop out. The studio models had this lovely sort of real world sense of a smooth, misted sort of carpet of realism on them, if that makes sense. They're sort of wrapped up in this. Although brought down to a small size, it looks real world. It looks camera ready. It looks like you could film it, and that's what's so attractive.
Yeah.
Also, like there's Tim with the painting and the colors and everything, and studio scale accuracy. Like, are you painting to match what it looks like on screen, or are you painting to match what it looks like in real life? Because like the TIE Fighter in real life, it's blue, but on screen it's like a light gray color.
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, I replicate mine as if I could steal them from the archives and put them on my coffee table. That's how I'd like. Yeah.
Well, like you said earlier, that's kind of, I wish I was that close, but that's sort of my goal whenever I build something studio scale is I want to be able to set it next to the real thing and not be able to tell which one is which.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, you can, but
which comes back to Jonathan, accuracy.
Yeah.
yes,
Like I keep saying, the biggest thing for me in this hobby is accuracy. I want it to look exactly like the model. I don't want it to and don't get me wrong. There's a couple, I think on the hospital ship or something else that I scratch built. I spent hours looking at these pictures, right? Hours of thinking of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to put this and what parts I'm going to use. And then I put it all together and then I see a part on there that I didn't see before. It just pops out at me, and like, it's not accurate. I got to fix it. I got to put that part back in that I missed, that I looked at that same picture 100 million times and didn't notice it until after I'd already built the model, So I think when we're talking about studio scale, for me personally, it's accuracy. Like I'm okay with materials being a little different. Like, I understand the hardcore basic concept of trying to make it exactly the same materials. I understand that. But reference, accuracy, as close in paint as possible, that's what does it for me. And I think I can speak for just about everybody here. It's probably the same thing, right?
I would say the same. I would say accuracy. I agree. I don't think it's so much in the execution. You also have to take into consideration whether we're talking about, TV shows and or movies that are dating back anywhere from 20 to 40 years. Times have changed. Technology has changed. And just like any other creative platform, it's okay to utilize different tools. So how you get there, I think it's okay to use some variables. But at the end of the day, I think accuracy is probably the most important. Size, yes. Obviously, size is important, but I think the accuracy aspect is, to me, a bit more important than being a few millimeters off here, or maybe even a quarter of an inch off here or there.
Jason, what do I always say about A-wings and cloud cars? Okay, I don't want a big cloud car like in my.
Too big,
I don't want a big, huge, 13-inch honking ship. I don't want an A-wing that is, is wider than my shoulders. You know what I mean? I like the little tiny one that John made for me. I know studio scale has to do with size, and it has to do with accuracy, and it has to do with building it. But sometimes I just want something
more
that
manageable.
More manageable.
And I
personally, the A-wing is studio scale.
And I personally, my preference, if I could, I like, and this happened recently with the piece I acquired from John, or even the maquettes that we were making. I like to actually replicate my pieces as they sit today. So if they have damage, if they're aged, if they're discolored, if they're broken, I actually try to replicate it that way. Now that gets more into the subjective aspect of the creative process and, preference. But again, it's still copying something as I see it, replicating it as I see it.
Well, a good example of
interesting
that
idea.
actually was John and me. We built the one of those background ships from Empire Strikes Back, the Moolah Moolah ship, as I call it, with the just made up of junk. I mean, I kind of took the approach where I made it as very accurate as I could to the actual build, but then the paint job, because the original is literally just primer, it's just paint and primer in the background. But I was just like, well, if it's going to be on display, or it's going to be on my shelf, I wanted to give it a little extra detail. So I did a kind of a pseudo ILM paint job. But then John went the other way, which I thought was brilliant, and he made it look like it does today, where it's just covered in dirt and dust and grime and the label and stuff. And I was just, and when he did that afterwards, and I went, oh, that's actually kind of better.
That's the one. That's what I was mentioning. That's actually the one I snapped up.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have started it without you doing it, Lee.
but
I've got to say this. I 99% of the stuff that I build is because I have seen masters like yourself and others doing it, and I'm like, I want to do that. That looks brilliant. I want to give it a go. And I'm not at that point yet at model making where I'm good enough to scratch build right like a generic model like a Y-wing or an X-wing or something from scratch. I need a base kit to work from, like Marvin Sandcrawler or Guy Slave One Run. I need that. That's where I'm really enjoying. The hard work's been taken away from me. Now it's just finding the right kit parts and doing it.
Hide your
I'll
crimes.
get there one day.
Hide your crimes.
Hide your
right,
crimes with the paint.
Well, there's been actually a really great discussion, guys. I think this went well. I think a lot of people thought that this was going to be something that it wasn't, and I hope that we changed not changed a lot of people's minds, but maybe opened some people's eyes, maybe educated a little bit, and maybe the people who were arguing aren't arguing anymore. And honestly, it's just a hobby. Just who cares? I understand there's a lot of research, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in it, and and there's a lot of new people who don't know any of this. They just hear from such and such or such and such, and they think, oh, well, then we know. But
it's like end of the day, Chris, everything is out there now anyway. Like with even the 5-foot Falcon, there's just pretty much everybody knows everything about it. There's no secret stuff to it anymore, and it's out there. I used to hoard stuff, like IDs and whatever, and I just don't. I just share it. It's life's too short. If other people want to build Falcons, that's a good thing. So,
I don't think too many people are going to build a 5-foot Falcon. Those two, I know. I'm not.
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Even if they're fully printed and things, I'm happy to help. Life's too short. You just got to, holding on to all that, your pages and pages of research is just pointless. You just turn into a bitter person, and that's what it used to be like on the RPF. But I get more fun out of guys approach me and I say, yeah, sure, here's the ID. It's all out there now.
I think the gatekeeping was something that was a little stressful and caused a lot of contention over the years. But I think at least now today with this conversation with everybody that's joined, I think one thing that's I hope we can leave with saying that everybody just remain open-minded. If anybody tries to share info or politely correct you, I don't think it's meant with malice. Not from everybody. I don't think if somebody says, "Hey, it's not just about this," people are just sharing their opinion. And then, if you are green and you are new to, this element of collecting, or, this aspect of Star Wars, and if it's the model side, and, you've only been collecting for a short time, or you haven't built anything, just try not to go out there and tell everybody as a know-it-all, like, this is what it means and this is what it is and that's that. Just, remain open to learning, remain open to understanding. And, I say all the time, it takes a village, right? Learning, the research, it's not any one person. I mean, Ethan knows this, John knows this, Chris, you know this. It takes a village. And without each other, we really wouldn't be able to get anywhere, right?
You couldn't build anything really. Honestly, I don't think I could build one model all on my own without other people's help or other people's input.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't have modeled that stuff in like the time frame that we modeled stuff before without people's help. Like it's such a huge, just
productivity triples at least when you bang heads together and help each other out.
It's all on the backs of others.
Look at John. Just in those couple of times where you, me, Jason got online, Marvin too, and we talked about specific parts. Like we figured it out. We figured things out a lot more because we had 4 eyes looking at one thing. Okay. And what this whole show was all about is just be open to somebody educating you on things that you think you know, but maybe you don't really know. Like just be open. Okay.
Yes.
And just help like talk to people about it. And if somebody tells you this is actually the way it is, don't be so belligerent and be like, well, no, it's this. No, just listen. Okay. Because if I didn't listen and I thought I knew everything and I thought I was like, all right, I know this part, I know this is this paint job, I know this is the way, this way, I wouldn't be near the modeler I am right now.
We would be the blind leading the blind, Chris. Literally.
Right. We would.
And if you're going to collect Star Wars models, get some behind the scenes books so that you can start seeing what the real ones look like. It's a lot of money to put down. You need to see what they really look like.
Yes, I agree.
And if it's got some spare cash out there, I really mean this. Please, somebody contact the publisher in Japan who did the New Chronicles book a few years ago and reprint it with an English translation, license it from Disney, and because you'd make a fortune, and everybody should have that book because it's amazing how many people haven't got that book, and now it's $1,000 book or whatever it is.
The Bible.
Yeah.
We gotta get Jonathan to go talk to Lucasfilm and get them to do it. So.
I'd be happy to do it. I just don't have the back. It's just like have the bankrolling to do it, and because and to be honest, even if there was a paperback version of that book, I mean, all the research has been done. It's all there. You don't even have to do anything. Literally, just translate the text back into English and reprint it, and there's nothing else needs to be done. And so that book is just a gold mine.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to end the show. I want to thank all of you guys for joining. This was great. I hope we opened up some eyes. I hope we educated a little bit. Because I really think that, like, I always said this to Jason, like, one of the things about our channel is, we spend a long time educating people on lineage, and hopefully we can educate a little bit more on studio scale as well. That's why we do these shows, to try to bring out some education in this. So
one thing people don't realize is we're also learning as we do them. I think both you and John can say, as we do these shows, some of them have blatantly been done because we're actually figuring things out in real time. There's at least 2 or 3 shows I can think of off the top of my head, but we're learning these things in real time and decided out of excitement to discuss them openly. And I just wanted to take a moment again,
Jason, and we bring these guests on so that we get all their information.
Yes,
so we learn. Yeah. We get all their information from guests. Like Lee.
With that said, I just want to say to Jonathan, to Lee, also Ethan and Justin. I know it was kind of last minute and kind of rallying everybody together, but I just want to say I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know that's, it was a little bit confusion when I was trying to, converse with everybody across the board. But again, guys, I know it's late. I know we're all in different time zones, but thank you for taking the time to come on. I think this is an important conversation. I think it was a great one to be had. And I really, really appreciate you taking the consideration and being here.
We got to get Steve to say hi at least.
What a
He's
studio
got
skill
to
means.
unmute himself. There you go.
Yeah. It's intimidating being around such genius. I don't know.
And just a quick shout out to we had Alex Hutchins in the
chat. Yeah.
So I just want to say hi, Alex.
Hey.
Yeah, go back and watch that show. It was a fascinating show. Jonathan and both Alex are both really well-educated, creative guys who do amazing jobs at their jobs. And we're gonna have more. So stay tuned.
Awesome.
And guys, don't go anywhere. We're gonna end the show and we'll talk a little bit afterwards. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.
Oh.